Hello, all you fellow dreamers, and welcome back to the DreamersLIVE podcast. Today's conversation is entitled Stuck in the Middle with You. We're talking about middle ground. Do we always have to go to extremes in politics, religion, personal relationships, whatever the cause or crisis? Is there any middle ground available to us? That's the conversation, and we hope you'll be a part of it. So come join Dreamers Live.
This podcast is a presentation of Pioneer Dream, celebrating 30 years of moving stories for our corporate, nonprofit, and entertainment partners.
Hello, fellow dreamers, and welcome back to the Dreamers Live podcast. We're so thrilled you're here. I am joined, as always, by Ann Jeanette. Hello, Ann Jeanette.
Hello, Jay. How are you today?
I'm quite fine, and thank you for asking.
Well, good. How's your week coming along?
My week is discombobulated, but that's okay. A lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts. That is per usual.
Yeah, and no real balance to things. It's just a lot of things happening at one time. We've got an away game coming up with Dreamers going to Austin, Texas.
I know. That's going to be so fun.
It is going to be so fun.
I am excited.
So we're making plans for that and seeing what materials we might need. And then we're participating in the Magic City Book Bash again this weekend, which will be after the time people are hearing this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So do not make plans to join us because it will have already happened.
And let's just say right now,
it was amazing.
Awesome.
What a smashing success the bash was. And
such a fun event.
And there are a lot of little things to get together for that. We want to get Dreamers Live podcast cards out so people can join our audience. And you've got to get your books together. We had to do a book reorder for the Bird and the Moon children's book.
I know, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I came up with the cutest idea.
You did.
Everyone that gets one of the books or has already gotten them, because this will be happening later, gets a bird and the moon pie. Get it? So I got the Easter peeps.
Yes.
And I combined it with a little moon pie in these cute little packages.
And not just that,
How
but
cute is that?
The bird that is featured in our Bird and the Moon book happens to be a cardinal.
He's a red
the
bird.
Loudest bird you've ever heard.
Yes, that's true.
And so you bought bird peeps, but they're not the yellow standard color.
No, I would have been excited because yellow's cute with the moon pies, just to even find those.
Yeah.
But at one of my particular bargain stores, they happen to have fruit punch flavored red peeps. So it's a red bird.
So it's a red cardinal bird peep along with a moon. And it's a little moon pie, so pretty much anyone can eat it, even if you've got the sugar beeties.
Yes, I'm not trying to brag on myself, but it's a pretty cute idea. Yeah. And the packs look great. And I'm such a nice wife for helping you.
Everyone who buys a book will get one of these. And so we have made plenty of allowances, and we packaged like 4 or 5 of them.
Lowered expectations.
No, we have plenty of it. And we had such a fun time last year. We met so many people. We're actually going to do, we're going to record some audio at the bash for the next podcast.
Oh, what are we going to do?
We're going to ask everybody
secret questions.
A question about, I think the question we're going to ask now, this is subject to change, as they say.
Okay.
I think we're going to talk about either the first book or a book that you read that you remember having kind of the most impressionable moment on you or the most significant impact on you.
That's cool. I know exactly what mine was.
I'm not going to say. I'm just going to answer the Bible right after.
Just to get extra points. Check.
What's your favorite book? Well, I love the Bible.
That's like whenever anybody says, if you could take one thing on a desert island, and I'm always like,
if you could have a meal with one person, Jesus. Okay. No, but if Jesus were unavailable for lunch, who else
might you pick? Yes. I mean, he's a multitasker, so he could probably make a lot of lunches. His schedule may be full. He usually only does lunch with 12 or more. That's right. So, it's like, thanks, Jesus. Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, we digress.
Yeah. So I won't ask you what your book is right now
because I'll save it for the next, because I've got it in mind. That's good.
How's your week going?
It's discombobulated, like you said, but not bad. Some people talk about like, oh man, my life's like a 3-ring circus. And I'm like, 3 rings? That sounds nice.
I'd like to get back down to 3
I think we have like 7 rings going on. But honestly, it's all good stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, though, we probably need to do a quick recap on do you remember when we started the season, we talked about the 20%?
Oh, boy, do I.
It's so easy to let that slip back in. So after we get through this weekend, we're going to have, what do we call it? A systems check?
Yes,
coffee?
A systems check.
And be like, are we doing too much again?
Right.
Yeah. We've got tendencies.
Speaking of reviews, you know that every conversation we have on Dreamers Live is crucial. It's a critical conversation. It's extremely important.
Absolutely life-changing.
Yeah. But I will say that the last two conversations we've had, one on why we persist.
That was really good.
And then one on surrender. Those two conversations might be the two most important conversations we've had in a long time. So if for some reason you viewing audience did not have a chance to take that podcast in, make sure you go back and pick those up because they're really, really important podcasts that I think are helpful for all of us. And just like the 20% concept that you referenced, I've been holding on to elements of those two conversations for weeks now.
That's cool.
And that's just really, really important. So I won't go back in and reset it right now. But if you've not heard it, go back and redo it.
Might be good to go back to those too. Okay, I like that.
Here's another thing that you could help us with, friends. We, of course, love having this conversation with you, and we would like to expand our group. Like I said, we're going to different cities for Dreamers Live events. We love that part of it. We love meeting new people, but you probably have someone in mind, if you think about it right now, that might enjoy these kind of topics and these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
And if you could share this podcast with them, there's an easy little thing right there. And it will say like copy link to the show or copy link to this episode. If you'll copy that, text it to somebody that you think might enjoy it, that would be super, super cool.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe if it's a specific episode that you really thought was helpful for you, that's a great idea. And it is easy because I am technically challenged. And if I can do it easily from my phone, anyone can do it.
Hey, speaking of being easy.
Okay, wait.
Wow, where is this going? Hey, we have we have a small announcement. We have a big announcement about a small thing.
Okay.
It's actually a mini thing.
We have so many announcements today.
I know we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the last one though, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
This is we have a brand new podcast.
Nice.
And we're super excited because it's actually a mini podcast.
Yeah, it's a really fun idea. We're calling it Got a Minute, and it's only 15 minutes long, and it takes a funny story from your book. You really don't have to read this.
Yes.
And then you pair it with one of my original songs.
Yes.
That sort of correlates, and so the whole thing's 15 minutes,
Yeah,
and it's just like make you smile.
What's fun about it is
kind of thing.
You actually give us 30 seconds or a minute before that song, and you tell us how the song came about, maybe what you were thinking when you wrote it, what's meaningful to you, maybe even something about the music itself. And so you go into that song kind of prepped.
Yeah,
I
always think that's helpful with original music because it's always new to everybody. So if they understand just a little bit about what was going on in your mind and heart when you wrote it, maybe they can relate to a little bit better. So but I think the first two we've done too, right?
Well,
I think they turned out really funny.
You can listen to that podcast on your lunch break or your smoke break or your vape break or on your commute home.
If you only exercise for 15 minutes, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's better than nothing.
And you can, and it's free. And so you can search it out if you want to. It's called Got a Minute Mini Podcast.
Like if they're listening to this one, how do they find that one?
You just go to your podcast provider.
Okay.
And you
hit the little search button.
Got a Minute Mini Podcast.
Okay.
And you'll see there's a bunch of Got a Minutes, but you'll see ours is the one with our face on it. So,
which is unfortunate, but necessary.
But necessary. Yeah. And I think the first two episodes are already out there. And so you can go get that and it'll be really fun. So
I'm going to go subscribe right after this.
Subscribe and share. Anyway, yeah. So, I've been thinking about this concept for a couple of days now of most people would not be aware, but there's been some political turmoil lately. Yeah, I know.
It's been totally calm. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. Fine.
I only know because I stay up on the news. And
and you tell me about it.
Yeah. And because you cannot hide from it.
Yeah, that's true. I've tried.
Anyway, so I as we've gone from these kind of extremes and all this kind of stuff and everybody hating each other and all the political stuff, and you know that this show is kind of apolitical. We don't talk about politics and we don't take sides on politics.
We might chat a little bit about how to survive a politically charged culture.
But I have had this one thought, this reoccurring thought, which is, I think, applicable to politics, but I think also to our lives in general, which is a little bit of why does it have to be one or the other? Why do we have to live in extremes. Yeah. So for example, on the politics stuff, can't we be physically responsible and compassionate at the same time? Can't we figure out how to fix government without burning the buildings down?
Right.
Same thing from the other side. Can't we figure out how to respect all people without also going off the deep end on certain things? And so for whatever reason, it feels like we're being asked to accept extremism. And what we have noticed in that extremism is that it will produce extremism on the other side.
Right.
The harsher and bigger and more volatile we are on one side of things, the more likely the response will be extremism on the other side.
Right.
And it's just like when someone gets upset at you and they may come at you, with something with all this, energy and anger. Well, your natural response is to come at them with the same level of it. Like, hey, to defend yourself. So I think that's natural.
And we get stuck in the middle because now we may not agree with all those things, but we know we don't agree with the other side about that stuff. So now we have to get in the boat with the other extremism. Right. And it's a weird place to be.
I know. I hate that because, it's part of the reason why we decided to be independent. Mm-hmm. That's the most political thing we'll say. It was just because, there are some of the things on both sides that make sense to me. I certainly don't know all the answers, but I feel like most people feel like they have to just buy a party line, hook, line, and sinker, and then that's it. You know, so it would be nice if we could just be stuck in the middle with you.
Well, I think yes. I think that it is our option. We can pick and choose a little bit. We can say no. We can begin to voice moderation in some ways. That's I kind of like that term progressive in that way. I know not everybody sees it that way. I see it as saying this is my baseline, and from that baseline I am going here and here and here, and not just being stuck on the baseline. But I think it works in our everyday lives. When it comes to food, when it comes to alcohol, when it comes to pretty much every decision we make in our lives.
Yeah, Netflix.
We can choose at some level to kind of live in the middle.
Yes,
we
to
don't
be moderate.
Yeah, so we joke about it because both of our families have family processes and family members that live in extreme. Either they are drinking like a fish every day, or they're going to Africa to feed the kids, and you don't know. You can do both.
Yeah.
You don't have to be.
Everybody has that friend who's hot and cold. Yeah, for sure.
If there are some things you just have to make decisions on, and a lot of people have. If you have troubles with alcohol at that level, for a lot of people, it's a good choice to just say I'm done. I cannot do this. But for so many of the other things in our lives, we don't have to be quite so extremist about it.
Yeah.
Whether it's our views about politics or exercise, like one of the worst things you can do when it comes to, okay, I want to get in shape. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to join a gym. And then you just go in there and you kill yourself for 3 days. And then you're in so much pain that you think, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah,
so
we see that all the time at our particular gym. You'll have new people that show up and even the coach will be like, hey, man, you might not pace yourself, bro. You don't have to do all this. And then they do.
Right.
And then you never see them again.
Yeah.
And they can't walk. And it's...
We used to do a little softball here and there, and you could always tell the person who would probably not be around very long because they were the person who would show up with all the brand new hot gear.
Oh yeah, they had like this super cool
they'd show up and they'd have batting gloves.
Yeah, and like the slick. My favorite was like it would be like church softball back in the day, and then people would show up and they'd have like the little short, like some guys had the little shorts and then the longer sliding shorts.
Yes.
I mean, as if
Hey, I need the sliding shorts.
Hey, well, no, I'm just saying though, like as if they're really going to be coming in hot to home plate at that church softball game against the Catholics.
You have to get a hit first.
And it would always be the ones who weren't very good that had the special gear. But some of us like to have good outfits for everything. Maybe that's it.
But there is a thing to, let's just start out in a moderate pace.
Yeah.
Your dad used to give me a hard time when I turned 30. I was not happy about that experience.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago.
Right.
And I thought, I don't want to turn 30. I want to still be a kid in my 20s.
I don't want to turn 30.
I don't want to turn 30.
If only you could just wish it away.
And so I thought, what do I want to do? And I wanted to prove to myself that I was really not that old. So I decided I would train for a marathon. And your dad was a marathon runner, and he was great. And he
was really excited to have you under his tutelage.
You and I had done 5Ks and stuff like that. And he would give us little training programs and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought this would be perfect. And so he and I would. The way the training would work is you would do a couple of small runs during the week, and then on Saturday you would do long runs, and they would get increasing. So
I remember because I brought the snacks.
Oh man! So it started out like at 4 miles, and you would work your way up to like 18 miles.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he used to give me a hard time because he would call me a hummingbird because
what'd you do?
You get out there and you're a little cold and everything, and you just start out and you're just like let's go. And so but that's not a pace you can sustain. And so it's a little bit like that in life. You get into something. So, for example, you may have it in you to start writing or journaling or something like that. And so I think the key is to give yourself some realistic place to start. Instead of saying, I'm going to write the novel I always wanted, well, maybe just take 5 minutes a day and write every day, 5 minutes, and just get in that flow before you sell your house and move to Cuba and start writing wow.
I think Cuba's probably a tough place to write. I know you were thinking international when you said that, but it's a little dangerous over there. But no, is that human nature to try to eat the whole elephant in one bite? And we go, let's do it. We're going to do it. And then, most all of us give up.
Well, you think, okay, I got to lose some weight. I'm just going to do, you're used to, 4 hamburgers a day, 4 hamburgers during the week and on and on and on. And you think to yourself, that's it. I'm going vegan. Well, God bless you if you have to go vegan. Yeah. And sometimes you just do.
Right.
That's part of it. You got to do all off or all on. But, maybe just set a plan that you can achieve.
Like
set a
maybe
moderate,
just 2 hamburgers a week.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I'm going to make sure that I include vegetables. I'm going to start doing that with my hamburger instead of fries. That's a great place to start. That's a doable thing, But the thing about one, on or off, one or the other, there's a certain thing to that I just think we're not required to do that in life. We're not required to do that in politics. And so a little bit of moderation is a really helpful thing in that process.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like that's part of American culture? I mean, I think it's sort of, I don't know that non-Western cultures struggle with that the same way that we do. Because it's sort of like the John Wayne mythology, kind of a deal like, we're going to go and get it. Let's capture the dream and do it.
It is a little bit like the montage mentality.
It is like the Rocky. Dude. If we could get in shape, well, I don't want to do all the things that Rocky did, but if we could get in shape like that with the montage.
But it takes 2.5 minutes with a song, and you can just be done.
Catchy theme song.
Right.
I know. So, I mean, how do you suggest, I get what you're saying about the metaphor of, moderation, taking things in chunks, not going to the extremes, but how do you do that when you're talking about interacting with people on politics or cultural challenges?
Most people don't want to talk. Most people don't want to have a conversation about politics. They want to talk about politics. In other words, they want you to shut up and listen as they expand on their thoughts and beliefs and whatever, and regurgitate what they just heard from some other talking head.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's part of it. I think you can give some body language and those things that say, I don't really want to participate in this and this and this.
Yeah.
But I do think you can. I think our responses on some of that stuff help set the stage. So, if we continue to reiterate, hey, I just feel like we should be moderate about some of these things, or I just wish that there was more middle ground, or I just wish that it wasn't one extreme or the other.
Right.
The challenge with extremism is that we're being tasked to accept everything on one side, even the things and the people that we know are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so if we can get more comfortable poking fun at our own side, if we can start looking at things more objectively and less defensively, instead of saying everything on our side is perfect, everything on your side is crap, then, and we can start being honest about that and owning that, I think we might get to a more normal middle ground place.
Yeah. I think people go with the extremes, though, in life because it's a lot easier. It's easier to find the people that have the same viewpoint that you do and hang out with them and make fun of the other ones. And we all want to do that. And we can be, guilty of that as well. Because when you are moderate and you're trying to be in the middle or open to everything, you have to think about what you're going to say. Yeah. You have to sort of guard, your thoughts in your mouth in terms of that. I was in a conversation with somebody yesterday, and we were, this person had brought up politics, which was totally fine. Yeah. And we had, agreed on some of the things, but I always try to be on a good day careful to say things like, this person was very persuaded, on that at sort of extreme level on this one side. Yeah, and I will say something like, this sometimes can help. I know it always seems easier from the outside. Yes. And not everything is as easy as black and white. I wish it were like that. And then I'll, sometimes I'll maybe try to say something like, I know that the people that even believe differently than I do, I think in their heart, if I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, are persuaded that this is what is best for the country. And then that tone can help people to chill down a little bit.
Well, that's a mature approach to it. I think what happened is...
Well, it doesn't happen all the time. I'm mature sometimes.
I think what's happened is about 15 or 20 years ago, we started on this downward, actually probably longer than that, 30 years ago. We started on this slope, and part of the slope was that we had to attribute malice and intent to the people who disagree with us. Right. So it was no longer a case of...
we disagree.
We disagree. I just see this way, and I see this way. It's you see that way because you're evil. Yeah. You see that way because and so, which is ironic because we tend to celebrate peacemakers and moderate and intelligent conversation. And we all say, I wish we could just have intelligent conversation again. But that's not really what we mean. We celebrate that and the principle, but we demand people take a stand in person. Yeah. We demand that they be. And we see that even in campaigns. So campaigns where people are moderate, are intelligent, want to work with both sides, want to do all that stuff, those people have a very difficult time just getting out of the primaries because they're not, because they don't seem definitive enough as a candidate. To hang their hat on. You have to come out and say radical things. You have to come out and be ugly. You have to do all that. Yeah. And
because don't you often look, at the candidates, both in local elections, statewide and national, and I just think, could they find no one else? Right. What happened? But I think, is this no one else? Really, come
What's
on.
behind door number 3?
I know some really smart people, Yeah. But I do think you're right. I think it's easier to follow alongside somebody who is seen as super strong, very definitive. I'm going to fix it this way, and this is what we're going to do. And everyone's like, wee, and and they try to ride along with that.
Well, and with our friends now, if someone identifies as Republican or they identify as Democrat, we view them essentially as the face of the entire party. So if I know someone who's a Republican, I say, oh, well, they represent, the entire political regime or the entire democratic regime. And so, I'm assuming that they have signed off on everything that happens in the party and every person who identifies as a Republican. So, every goofball that is in Congress from a Democrat or Republican side, suddenly that person has somehow signed off and said, yes, I like this person. Well, that's not really being fair to the person you're in a conversation with. I'm sure if they're being honest, there are a lot of people they feel uncomfortable with in their own party.
Sure.
So, back to your question, I think that's part of it. If we can begin to laugh at our own party, if we can begin to be critical, in a healthy means of our own party, it's okay for you to say, given the two options, this is just simply the option I think will put us in the best place as a country. I don't believe in but being required to be an apologist for everything that the party does, everything that your religion does, everything that your city does, everything, everything that your NFL team does. At some point, you have to be able to say that there is no absolute in this. Yeah. the demand for us to take the whole thing and then sign off on this approval it's not
healthy.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Well, what are some other outside of politics? Because I feel like extremism and being thoroughly convinced and spouting your opinion has become in the forefront of American culture. So what are some other areas? I mean, I'm thinking of one where you see extremism.
Yeah, what is it?
One that I have encountered a lot is like parenting advice.
Oh, yeah.
Or parenting styles.
Yeah.
So there are people, friends, well-meaning. A lot of times they're older than you and they've already been through this and their kids are, but they will be thoroughly convinced oftentimes that whatever they did was exactly the right way. And they just up in your face. And then sometimes you want to be like, hey, thanks so much for your advice. How long has Trevor been in jail? I mean, like, do you know what I'm saying?
I know.
It is.
Well, back in my day, we just let them stay up till they got tired.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, 2 of your kids are homeless now. I mean,
back in my day, they went to bed at 8 o'clock. Didn't matter where we were. Okay, all right.
And then you'll have somebody on the other side. Well, we always had a serious bedtime right at 7:59. Yeah. We never strayed from that because we did sleep training. And I remember that's especially difficult. I think, to be honest, that women get, piled on with that a lot more.
And once again, most of the time there's some kind of moral attachment to it. There's some kind of,
we did it this righteous indignation.
Yeah. So if somebody doesn't agree with you, then they're probably an evil person.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know we've gotten a lot of that because our life is a little different than the average. Yeah. And so we've had to do some things.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
because we have multiple wives and stuff? Okay.
No, I mean, I don't know. Like, we had our daughter when we were older.
Yes.
We have our own business.
Well, you were older. I was still young.
Okay, right. That's a good point. A lot of times we end up having to work some on the weekends. I mean, it's just due to it's just not traditional. Is that a better way to put it?
Yeah.
And so we've had to make some different decisions and based on the personality of our kid and what's best for her because we know her best. So we've gotten a lot of criticism. Like I remember we used to put Evangeline to bed pretty early because she's never been able to sleep in. Like when her eyeballs wake up, she's like, it's 5:30. And right now she's 13 and she's the only teenager in the world that cannot sleep in. So this is like part of her body clock. So everybody would be like, why can't you let her stay out till 10? We're having a great time. And I'm like, do you want to live with her the next day? So we would have like a big event or something we had to all be in charge of. And we knew if she didn't get sleep, especially when kids are little, she can keep it together now. But, it was going to wreck the day.
But that's a great illustration.
But we got a lot of judgment about that.
That's a great illustration of it in the sense that, with kids, like, we choose to feed Evangeline, a lot of healthy stuff.
And then she wrecks it, right? By eating her own sugar.
There's extremes on both of that. So some people just let their kid literally eat anything. Yeah. So it's a lot of processed foods and it's a lot of hamburgers and fries and it's all
just
and
junk,
going
sugar
out
all day.
Yeah, and fast food pretty much every night. And then there are other people who will not let their kids see anything that is not organic.
Yes. And we've done both.
and their snacks are jicama and carrots and celery.
It's jicama,
yeah,
not jicama.
Oh, I like jicama.
It's gross, and I will eat anything, good veggie. But
it's an extreme. Same thing with screens. Like you just hand a kid at 18 months a screen,
and they're on it constantly,
or they never see a screen till they're 18.
Yeah, exactly. Why is that? Why do we do that? I think again it goes back to.
I don't know if it, but I guess there are certain things like if you have an allergy or some kind of thing that would be a different deal. But I think in some way you're robbing people of the opportunity for decision making.
Yeah.
What's right in this moment? How am I going to handle this? Because at some point your kid is going to come in contact with sugar.
Sure. Well, extreme. I mean, it's so true. I was going to say,
or a screen.
We feed our daughter healthy for the most part, and then she goes to school and just pounds sugar.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, now she's old enough; she can sneak treats and the whole deal. But I think that extremism is easier. I think it goes back to that. I mean, we know that. Like, if we're trying to do like a trim down or whatever the heck we're doing health wise, right? It's easier for me to say I will have 0 sugar through April than for me to say I will have little bits of sugar here and there.
Well, that's where we are.
Because then you have to. Then every time you're around it, you've got to make a decision.
So. Our company has been, we've been self-employed for like 30 years, and the way our stuff has worked, it's it's a whole lot of feast or famine, but that you would get
mostly famine.
You get checks, you do a project, you get paid at the end of the project. And all that. So to say that our income has never been standard or consistent or any of that stuff.
Or stable. Right.
Or stable, yeah. or enough. And,
but hey, I'm happy to be here, guys. No complaints.
But, in times when we did have more, we thought, we should budget and do this and live on this budget and do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there would be nothing more suffocating than going from just spending what you had when you had it and all kinds of, to suddenly being on a train track.
Yeah.
And this is the only way you can go, and here's your budget, and you don't deviate. And it's always down. And I thought, so that would always kill me. And so now we're kind of in that place right now because following the holidays and 20% and a number of other things, we decided that we would try to moderate our alcohol income a little bit more.
Oh, you're talking about, I thought you were saying time. You're talking about our alcohol intake.
Yeah. And
both important.
So we thought, okay, well, let's instead of just drinking,
holidays,
and kind of doing whatever, whenever, let's figure out what is a kind of a healthy amount and what that would look like. And it's almost like rationing. Okay, you get 9 drinks a week, or you get 14 drinks, or whatever it is. And
your numbers are high there, sir.
It's not, a wide swing from what we were already doing, but suddenly feeling like you had a ration ticket, you think, well, the hell with this. Suddenly I've never wanted to drink more than I do one right now.
Like I will say, don't you boss me.
Right.
Don't boss me.
So there's something about that where, it's an incredibly healthy approach to take, because you do need to know.
Yeah.
With food and stuff, you do sometimes need to think about, I need to make sure that I have whatever it is, 80% vegetables and 20% meat protein, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Same thing, because you just do. You have to sometimes you have to reorient your mind as to what is the right proportion of things. And same thing with drinking. Sometimes you have to get your tolerance back down. You have to reel things in a little bit. And sometimes you need a tell. Like I used to joke about, I'm terrible at body awareness. And when I was on the swim team, they'd say, okay, make sure you pull all the way through your stroke and this, that, and the other, and you come all the way out at the, down by your leg and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm trying. I thought I was doing that.
Me
and
too.
then finally
Mine's
when coach
worse.
said, look, physically take your thumb, and when you pull your freestyle pull through the water, touch your leg at the end of your pull so you're at full extension.
Oh, that's smart.
And there was a physical tell that said, I am doing this properly.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing now in our gym. Someone will say, let's do some squats. And you think you're getting low enough. And they'll say, no, here, put this big medicine ball underneath you. And when your butt touches the ball, you'll know you're low enough.
Yeah.
And you need a physical tell. Well, sometimes with eating or drinking, you need one of those tells. And so
an actual number or
14,
actual goal.
14 drinks a week, or 9 drinks a week, or 2 drinks a week, or whatever it is.
And we're going to do no sugar through this time. Yeah, I think so too.
Or making sure that I eat fish 3 times a week or 4 times a week instead of just,
And guys, just so you know, as you get older, you got to do more and more of these things. It's pretty fun. Okay, so that's interesting. I like your tell. That's a good metaphor.
Yeah.
So what are some tells that we could potentially have in our own mind when we're having conversations or getting ready to put something on Facebook?
Yeah.
When it comes back to a political or religious beliefs or even cultural commentary, is there a way, if we're having a conversation with somebody, that we could remember, hey, why don't you just be cool about what you say here? Be open-minded. What's a tell?
I think one tell is, are you dominating the conversation?
Oh, that's good.
So if you're holding 80% or more of the words that are coming out in the conversation, there's a good chance you're off the other end of it. Yeah. And so that's part of it.
That's really good. Okay. I have one now that I'm thinking about that conversation I had the other day, because this person and I were in agreement on a lot of things. And sometimes this is fun. That's not always wrong, but there was kind of like this, like kind of this, I know, right? So stupid kind of a feel, which is, hey, we all have friends and that we can be honest with, and that's great. But at a certain point, I thought, we kind of sound like middle schoolers here a little bit, like we're, love our middle school club. Just saying. So maybe there's that. If you're having a little bit too much fun trashing the other side, that's a tell. And to maybe bring it back to center. I don't know.
I think so.
If there's a Beavis and Butthead laugh,
I think one other way to do some of that in moderation is probably to ask questions. So or to on your own end poke fun at your side.
Oh, see, that's good. If you were willing, I like that. If you're willing to say, I like, I normally like this guy, but then he did this, and I was like, whatever. I mean, that says you're willing to.
And I think another way to do that is to involve a third person and find, especially if that third person doesn't agree with your political side or your religious belief or your whatever NFL team or whatever it is, include them in the conversation as you can and try and find more middle ground. Try and find more things that you have in agreement versus, or, to expand your humor thing by making fun of your own stuff in front of someone who's on the other side. So if you happen to be a Democrat and you are having a conversation with a Republican, then if you begin to make fun of your own side, you're letting them know we don't all have to take it this seriously.
That's right. It's safe to.
It's all safe for us
part of this.
to call our own sides out a little bit. In that process, or you can compliment. One of the things I don't necessarily agree with the approach, but the goal of X, Y, or Z I think is really important. Or one of the things that, and this is difficult for a lot of us, one of the things I think the administration has done well is X, or one of the things I think Congress has done, whatever.
Yeah.
And or one of the things I'm hoping we can get to is X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. And then also, I think, I was thinking about, this is interesting if you're talking about political things with people. Now that I had a chance to reflect on that conversation I had a couple days ago, what I wish I would have asked was, what is it about your life and the way you grew up that caused you to have some of the political beliefs you have? And that's an interesting question.
Yes, it is.
Because a lot of times when you understand how someone grew up, or for instance, if they're a teacher and they have seen a lot of kids in difficult situations that don't have enough money and are not getting a good education. So, what is it that has caused you to feel that way? And that's interesting because if that's somebody that, even if they believe differently politically than you do, it's interesting to hear how they came to those conclusions. A lot of times it has to do with their experiences and how they grew up, things that they suffered through, or things that they overcame in their life. So because they became an overcomer, for instance, of alcohol and drugs, they feel like anyone who drinks anything is wrong. That's just one example. But when you start to understand everything that a person's been through, I think it can help you be more empathetic as to why they see the world the way they do.
We used to refer to that as proximity. So your proximity to an issue or an element of an issue, it really shapes, and we found this out with COVID. So if you were on the front lines of COVID when thousands of people a day were dying.
Yeah. If you were a nurse in a big city hospital.
If you happen to be a nurse, if you happen to be in any way associated with that or connected to that, the idea of rushing to open the country back up was petrifying. And the fact that people didn't understand or were dismissive of how big or real the pandemic was.
Or questioned the numbers.
You were just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I'm living in this 24/7.
But if you were just here in Oklahoma,
if you were the owner of a business and that small business was literally on the edge of being extinct, and you'd spent 20 or 30 years like we have.
Like ours was.
If you're about to lose your business or you lose your job or lose your income, then your proximity to the pandemic was different.
Oh yeah.
And you couldn't, in a lot of ways, open up fast enough.
Yeah, that's so true.
We lose the ability to see the other person's side.
Yeah.
We lose the ability to be empathetic or to be understanding. And all we have is fear, and fear is rage.
Yes.
So once we have that fear set in and we begin to express our rage, well, then we're no longer interested in what the other side has to say or do about that.
Yeah, and we're really just basing it on our own experience. I mean, an example.
We've found that out with conversations about homosexuality and transgender, that it's all fun and games until it's your child.
Yeah,
until
and we have
it's
known
your family
people
member.
that
then you're forced to see that. You're forced to look at that in a way. And
thinking back to COVID, I hadn't thought about this in a while, small business owners, et cetera, things that you and I had never experienced was like we had to apply for unemployment.
Yes.
Which is crazy. But there was no way, for everything that we do is with people and in person. So there was no way for us to survive.
We work with people to produce stuff for people.
For people.
Right.
Yeah. So everything we did shut down everything. And then you're like, but you still have to eat and try to pay your mortgage and all those different things. And so we went through the experience of what it's like to go to the unemployment office and apply for that and work through that system. And probably before that time, I feel like we're pretty empathetic because we've been around a lot of different types of people. We might have been like, oh, they're on unemployment again, or what's that all about?
They just
that
need
system.
to move on and get a job. Yeah,
exactly.
Because
you need to go work.
We've always been that kind of people. Let's just do what's necessary. Let's go work.
Exactly. But oftentimes people who end up using those systems that are in place are in a crisis of their own. Of course, there are going to be people that abuse it, just like there are people that abuse anything. Right. But how much did our perspective about all of that and those systems and social services change when we needed them? And that was our proximity to that. But I'm grateful for that because now we know.
The fact that somehow we did all that and applied and had to go through all that, and I think it ended up being like $60 a week.
It was.
Like,
this was not really worth it.
I am less vital to this than I thought I was.
There was a small time where there was the pandemic unemployment that was really helpful, the national one. But anyway, my point is that, we understand that now. We might have had a more extreme viewpoint about that before, but because we've been through something, gosh, that's why I would just want to encourage everyone to please meet some people that are different than you. Go travel. And if you don't have money to travel, I mean, go drive somewhere. It just opens your whole world. And
people that are different from you in your own hometown. For sure.
It is so healthy. I'm so glad that we've been able to. One of the great things about having Evangeline is that we didn't really understand. Like, we supported public education in schools, but we didn't really understand until you have someone that's in the system and how that works. And our world has just opened tremendously to all kinds of people and their struggles.
We're rich in experience. I went to a private school when I was in elementary. And it saved my life. I had amazing teachers, small classrooms.
You needed some special supervision, didn't you?
I did. And so here we are, and we're having a daughter, and we're deciding what we're going to do about school. And she happened to be enrolled in a public school at the time that we were considering taking her back to the very school that I went to. And but she was having an amazing experience in her school, and she had an amazing principal and teachers at Kane Elementary.
Yeah.
And so we know both those worlds.
Yeah.
I know what going to a private school is like and what it affords you and what it does for you. I know what a good public school can do and what it affords you.
Yeah.
She's much richer for having gone to Kane Elementary and also being exposed to a whole other series of worlds.
Yes.
And so once she got to junior high, she wasn't surprised and has not been surprised by anything.
She thrives around that. And so, I think a lot of times extremism comes for people that maybe aren't able to or can but don't ever branch outside of what's comfortable for them.
Right.
And that's it. We all tend to flock. It is definitely human nature to like kinds of people. But if you can ever put yourself in a situation like going on a mission trip or helping with the Peace Corps or just something as simple as volunteering at a shelter to really be around different people that have had completely different lives, man, it'll open your eyes. And then when those conversations come, you're not so easy to think everything's black and white.
Well, we've talked about that whole principle of trying to understand what the other person fears. You know, when you get into the transgender conversation and you get into transgender athletes and all that stuff, and people are understandably, very passionate about both sides, you have to ask yourself, what is this person afraid of? And how do I respond to that? Yeah. How do I address that? How do we get through this literally together? Because we can. Yeah. We can do things that are common sense. We can do things that make sense. And it doesn't have to be all the other. You don't have to just eliminate all petroleum stuff in favor of all electric stuff and all that. We can make a transition. We can involve everybody. We can create opportunities for everybody.
Yeah. The word hybrid comes to mind.
Yeah, well, you can find ways to do those things, and we can work together in that process, and we can do things at an intelligent level and pace, not just petroleum and I'm not addressing all the greenhouse gases and all that. What I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be quite so extreme. Yeah. And if we give ourselves the opportunity to do that, then okay.
Yes. And I don't want to forget that we are modeling, whether you have kids or not, we're modeling how we're going to do things in society for people that are younger and are looking to us. And it's so interesting because, we know that, hatred is taught. racial injustice is taught, extremism is taught. Yeah. And if we are able to see, I think our parents or our leaders grapple with some of the challenges of understanding all points of view, it shows us that that's okay. Yes. When we have our Dreamers Club with the 7th and 8th graders, it's interesting to hear them talk, because they, at this point in their lives, aren't totally sold on either way. They're open. Right. They're still open to trying to understand other people's viewpoint. It's really sweet, to hear them talk.
Well, and the more you can get people together, the better off we all are.
That's the coolest thing about DreamersLIVE. Yeah. All different types of people jammed into a place together, and we all get to know one another and realize that we're really not that different than we think.
There are 2 terrible places that you can find yourself. One is cut off, being alone. So you're not socializing at all. You're left to yourself.
That's dangerous.
That's a dangerous, dangerous place to be. And the place that is almost as dangerous is only being with people that agree with you all the time. So whether that's, only your church group, only your political party, whatever, only your family.
Yeah. Only the people that work out at your gym and eat a certain exact way.
Yeah. I mean, those such a dangerous place to be.
Well, we call that a ghetto. We used to refer to that as, only specifically urban areas of distinct cultures. But the truth is, we, out of comfort and then politically, social media, et cetera, create these places where we choose to be in a ghetto, separate from everybody else. And it's a dangerous place to be. Right. And we have the choice to try to understand other people's perspective. Yeah. It takes a little work, but isn't it also cool?
100 years ago, our friends, Chef and Jean Ann, had a little bed and breakfast.
Shout out to Chef and Jean Ann in Seattle.
And they used to do a thing where they would invite people to dinner, and they would always be, people from different worlds.
I'd forgotten about that.
We're still friends with people that we met in those nights 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's so cool. You're right. We need to credit them with the whole, concept of DreamersLIVE or getting people together, because I remember they were good friends of ours, and they had this couple they wanted to meet, our great friends Tom and Peggy O'Connor.
New York City.
And so my dad, you guys know this, is a minister, and she said, well, let's get the minister together with my friends Tom and Peggy, who are, Tom is atheist and Peggy's Jewish. And she obviously knows that we love people and would be kind. And we got together and had the coolest conversations, and we love them, and we're still friends because we were open to others' perspectives. And when you share about that stuff and you're able to make yourself be open, that's how you connect with people. Right. It's based on the amount of shared information. Have you ever noticed this when you're making a new friend? You get together the first time, it's like, how's your day? What type of work do you do? The next time it's like, how's it going with your children? Pretty crappy. Like, there's this honesty, but the more you're willing to let your guard down and be honest with people, and the more shared information you have, that's how you get close with someone. Yeah. And so anyway, like you said, we're still friends with those people. And we, in any other situation, we could have been extreme about what we thought or believed. So
yeah. And the longer we've gone, and I think obviously the more we've been connected to other people and exposed to the people, especially in the last 15 or 20 years, that has reshaped and redirected 1,000 different things in us. Yeah. And we are so much richer because of that. And there was a time in our lives when we probably were living a bit of a ghetto experience. Yes. And I can remember, I can remember when that started to transition. And I can remember, like we used to host parties at our house all the time. And for a long time, that party was the same group of friends, the same group of people.
Yeah, the ones we were comfortable with.
Yeah. And then somewhere in there, I thought we should bring some other people in, and we kind of know.
This story needs some new characters.
Yeah. And we started to do that, and that totally changed our lives. And it's reshaped us and made us so much happier. And it's such an important thing.
There are certain things that you can be bought and sold on the fact that they're absolutely wrong.
Right.
Until you get to know somebody that is suffering with that situation or has been through that.
And if your viewpoint,
you hear their story.
If your viewpoint can't sustain meeting somebody else, then your viewpoint's not very strong. Yeah. If your viewpoint can't sustain being around somebody from the other party because you might be infected, or someone from the other religion because you might be infected, then your viewpoint's not strong enough. And so get together with other people, and it'll be okay.
And let's just chill. Yeah. Let's not be extreme.
Let's just be moderate.
Let's just not.
It doesn't have to be one or the other. But what it does have to do with is being part of DreamersLIVE.
Oh, wow. That was a
Thank you.
That's good
Thank
transition.
Yeah.
I like that.
And don't forget, friends, we can have these conversations with you in your place. If you've been to a Dreamers Live event, you know what that's all about. And we can do those in places and homes and other cities. We'd love to do that with you and have these conversations as often as we can.
Have us in. We promise to be thought-provoking and funny.
And what
Not necessarily in that order.
What are the 2 things we've asked you to do today?
We've asked them to share the Dreamers Live podcast.
Yes.
If there's a particular episode that they think is relevant to a particular friend or family member, to send that. Maybe have a little discussion with them afterwards.
Yes.
And then we also have our new mini podcast, The Got a Minute, right?
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and that's where we pair a funny story from your book with a song. It's only 15 minutes. You can do that whenever you want, and I think it will brighten your day.
First 2 episodes.
Try that. Yeah.
Well, between now and the next time we see each other, we hope all things go well. We appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the Dreamers Live podcast, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next conversation.
Yes. See you soon.
Peace out.